Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joy DuBose, and I am with the Florida State University in Panama City. As we were discussing before everyone came in, it feels a wonderful 106 degrees down here. So we hope everyone's just a little bit cooler than us. But one of the great things about ACTAL is that we're all focused on technology. And if we try to explain many aspects of our jobs to other people, we might get a huh look. I mean, you try explaining what a makerspace is to many other people and you will get funny looks. However, it's safe to say that just about everyone here knows what a makerspace is. They may look different, they may run differently, they may even be called different things than a makerspace. But we can come together, talk about them, and discuss our different makerspace problems and successes. For example, makerspace at FSU PC can be found in the Robbins Center for Academic Excellence, and it is known as the Digital Design Studio, or the DDS for short. Instead of faculty and staff, it is primarily run by students, with the supervisor doing most of the administration work. A few months ago, this supervisory role changed from the original supervisor who created the space, and the administration asked me to take on the role of supervisor. During this handover process, there were many lessons learned, changes made, and general things figured out. In this process, it was important to keep the student workers involved in all of the changes, while also thinking about the space as a whole and what the administration wanted to see from the change. So today, I want to share some of the various lessons I learned and continue to learn while working with the DDS. These lessons involve making some changes and getting feedback, handling situations with other departments, how to handle future changes, and lastly, where to get help. Hopefully, these can help you in your own makerspace journey. First, I want to cover some general background about the DDS. The space was created about 10 years ago and grew slowly. Originally, it held mostly podcasting equipment, which was used by various classes. Slowly, the space started to accumulate other technology and fun things, such as VR, a large format printer for posters, 3D printers, a Cricut, and even our own robot. You can see here on the right, that is Penny, and the DDS's, one of their mascots, Mr. Bones, on the left. The equipment and any printing requests are all managed by the DDS student employees, and the majority of the requests for the space, they mostly receive 3D prints and large poster prints. Students, faculty, and staff can submit requests for these various machines using a Qualtrics system online. Besides the equipment mentioned, the space also has about 6 Alienware computers that students can use to play video games, and a large screen TV, which is used to play movies and music during the day. You can see it in the far right corner. I think they were listening to Minecraft music that day. While the overall space is small, it has become a hangout place for much of the student body. The student workers also hold various events in the space. Some of these include club meetings, such as the gaming club, movie Mondays, where the students have popcorn and watch various movies all day. And during the past semester, they held trivia in collaboration with the library. As I mentioned before, the DDS is run by student workers, with the supervisor dealing with the administrative duties. It is the students who help fulfilling printing requests, putting on movies or music, playing in the space, and generally keeping everything tidy and clean. So overall, even though it's run a little differently and goes by a different name, it is a maker space. So I keep using the phrase student run. What does that mean exactly? Well, as I mentioned, the students are in charge of fulfilling requests and general duties like keeping the place clean. However, that's no different from many makerspaces. The DDS is a bit different because the students are in charge of the space. In the past, they choose their own schedules, their communication styles, and put in budget requests. Traditionally, the DDS had student leads, who were students who acted as team leaders and made sure everything ran smoothly and efficiently. The DDS students are also the ones who run maintenance and inventory checks on the space and make sure all the machines are running smoothly. So what are the benefits of this setup? Since the DDS is run by students, many students feel like it's just a space just for them, and that it's generally more welcoming. They can play games freely, watch movies, take naps on the couch, you name it. The students pick the movie, or in some cases, anime, and watch whatever they want. The general rule is to keep it PG-13 and make it something you wouldn't mind watching in front of your grandma. You can walk into the space, and I have, on more than one occasion, heard the weirdest and oddest conversations and arguments. Some are these, and these are absolutely 100% true. Can jellyfish swim? Yes or no? Can we translate the Minecraft movie into Latin? They did. It took them 2 days. And when students were told they could bring only 1 page of notes for a test, they spent 2 days preparing to print their notes on the largest format the poster printer had, and the engineering professor thought it was hilarious. In short, the students feel like it's a free space to be themselves. The benefits of it being a student-run space are twofold. Not only do they get experience in work-related things, such as scheduling, maintenance, requests, customer service, etc., but with it being a student-run space, it feels more welcoming to students who may be shyer or unsure around others. After all, the student who may have trouble speaking in class may not have any trouble speaking to his peers about their favorite video game or anime. Now, those are some of the benefits, but there are also some challenges to a student-run space. Just like with any job, sometimes there is conflict, like people being too loud or saying disagreeable things. There is signage everywhere stating the rules for the DDS, and the space is generally designated as a no politics allowed space. But we all know people will be people. For some students, it was very hard to stand up and address this conflict. Other times, they didn't want to say anything because the person who was doing it was their friend. And lastly, there's the general drama. People date and break up. They may not like a certain person, or they may be saying, "Why are you telling me what to do? You're a freshman and I'm a junior." That can be really hard for career adults to deal with, much less students who are dealing with the pressures of college classes and other jobs. So, when I took over as the new supervisor in May, it occurred somewhat differently than other supervisory changes. I had already been going by the DDS space and had worked with the students on a couple of programs. The library and the DDS hosted a couple of video game trivia sessions that the students seemed to enjoy. Indeed, they were hoping to cram in another one before the end of the semester, but we ran out of time. So when I was asked to be the supervisor, they were already somewhat familiar with me. The administration had some requests and concerns for me concerning the space. They wanted the DDS to be kept clean or at least cleaner. There had been an outbreak of ants due to food being left out. And like most of us, they didn't really want a repeat performance of this. They also wanted me to take more of a role in the administrative duties, such as working more with HR, budgets, etc. Now, the previous supervisor had been more hands-off in her supervisory style, which had worked and been a benefit for many years. However, with current students, the administration wanted a more present role. And after seeing my programming and how I interacted with students, they believed I could fill the job. Now, since the current DDS supervisor would still be working at the institution, she's currently a teaching professor, they wanted to wait until the semester ended for the supervisor changed. So during this time, I was able to find out the history of the DDS, how it had been traditionally run, and what the students' duties were. So as I go forward and talk about changes and communication during those changes, much of that was put in progress before I started as supervisor on May 5th. That's right, I was the supervisor the day after Star Wars Day. So would this be New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back? So the first part of any job is to see what is going well and what is not going so well, as well as discussing any possible changes that may occur going forward. That involved talking to the current workers, the students. Now, communication is very important in any job, but what is also important is how you communicate. I'm going to be talking a great deal about communication, so it's key. Just highlight it. Before I became the supervisor, I went to the students and I talked with them about the possible changes and basically asked, what do you need help with? I asked them, do you want the DDS to continue as it always has been? I wanted the change to go as smoothly as possible. And I also wanted the workers to feel like they had a voice. After all, many of them had worked in the space for years. They were the old hands, not me. It was after talking to the students and getting their views that several changes were made. I also made sure that the students were involved in the changes and the processes, so they felt like their opinions mattered because they did. And the DDS remains student-run despite more supervision. This is important for any supervisory position. We may go through and we may have amazing ideas. And we as supervisors need to make sure that the current workers know that we value what they have to say and their voice matters. They were very accepting of some of the changes. Some of them they weren't. But the ones they were involved the overall structure and duties of the DDS. Now, this is very, very important. I didn't go in demanding that they do X, Y, and Z. I asked them, what would be most helpful? What do you want the most? Where the previous leads had had problems with people setting up the schedule and begging for schedule information, the students told me point blank they didn't want to do the schedule anymore. They wanted a normal job. They did not want to deal with HR or budgets. They didn't want team meets anymore. And they wanted everyone to be of the same rank on the same page. Now, it's important to note, not everybody agreed to this, but the majority wanted the changes and overall lighter duties. Also, not all of this came about smoothly. I found out just a few days before a holiday that the schedule had not been done for the weeks after the holiday. And that's because the students didn't want to do it. So I don't want this to sound like it was some mystical journey and nothing went wrong, because that is not the case. Supervising a department or area is tough, and it can be difficult to make sure everybody is on the same page. Many workers may not tell you things because they think you'll be mad or upset with them. But as I have told my staff, I can't fix the problem if you don't tell me about it. I just need you to talk to me. Things are getting stuck. Okay. So it is also very important, not only in the transitional phase, but overall, but to let your student workers and your workers ask questions. It generally helps the workflow to go better for people to understand why they're doing something. I also gave them plenty of space to ask questions, either in the DDS space itself, or told them they could come by my office and ask, or if they didn't want to ask me face to face, they could send me an email. Many of them took advantage. Several students asked if there are no leads, who does the training? I suggested that the most senior person does the training. Senior meaning who had been there the longest. If that person couldn't or didn't want to, the next person down the list did. That was generally accepted as a good solution. For the budget, the students themselves had gone into FSU's ordering system, SpearMart, and placed their own orders. This was one thing the administration wanted to change and wanted me to do. The students wondered how they were going to order things with the change. After some discussion, it was decided that they would keep track of what they needed and make a list, and I would submit a request and place an order. It was important for them to still feel part of the process. Like, yes, you can make requests and you're going to be listened to. For example, people would, and still do, stop by the DDS and ask for forks or spoons for lunch. Before, the DDS never had any. Now, they are the proud owners of over 2,000 sporks, because sporks are both a fork and a spoon. One of the biggest changes that the students had to deal with, and I did get some pushback from, was the use of Discord. Every student who works for the DDS had their own personal Discord, so they created one for work. This was their main form of communication. Now, there were several problems with using Discord for work. The biggest one was that it wasn't an accepted form of communication by university standards. It wasn't Outlook, wasn't Teams, wasn't Slack, whatever. Discord also tends to slow down the computers it is installed on, which I will cover again in a bit. It also would cause absolutely no work-life balance, since all the personal Discords would be connected and people would be getting all of the pings. That's important and worth thinking about. Also, I'm in the state of Florida. And in the state of Florida, like many other states, if you use your phone, whatever for work, it can be looked into in a court of law, aka it's discoverable. The students' personal Discords were linked to a work chat. And so that could have also caused some legal problems if a situation came to that. It's not likely that it ever would, but it was a just in case thing. Now, we didn't get rid of Discord immediately. I went in there for weeks and said, hey guys, I'm a millennial, so I call everyone guys. So when I start a supervisor on May 5th, we need to have all work files, all records, etc., transferred from Discord to Teams. I created a shared team channel with everyone who works for the DDS, and gradually all the files were added to it. I gave them several weeks and many reminders to do it. And when asked, I gave them reasons why it had to be done. So overall, the team channel was ready to go and everything had been transferred on May 5th. I also told them, you don't have to get rid of Discord completely. You can keep your own personal Discord things, but everything work-related has to go through Outlook, email, or Teams. They listened, and despite some initial rumbling, it got done. It was also a gradual process. When changing a process like this, it is important that it is done gradually when possible, and people are given a chance to get used to the change. Now, during the transition process, I was informed of an almost 3-page list of tech problems that needed to be addressed. Some of them were minor, and some of them weren't. The minor ones were things like making cords look nicer or having a cord replaced. Some of them were more complex and explained some of the odd requests from the DDS students. For example, the computers at the main desk were not really working, and the students decided to have better working computers. They would replace them with 2 of the current Alienware computers. To do that, they needed to replace those old Alienwares with 2 brand new ones, which they ordered using leftover grant funds. This caused a lot of problems for IT and the DDS students. It was eventually discovered that they could not even use the old Alienware as they wanted to because they were owned by the Student Government Council, which wanted to move them elsewhere. So, in other words, it was a mess. It was a giant mess. So how did it get fixed? I put in an IT ticket for the DDS computers. And then when IT was in the library on a different matter, the library is also my other department I supervise, I reminded them of the problem and walked them over to the DDS. They then saw that the computers would barely boot up. And then those computers were replaced in about a week. Now that sounds like an easy solution, but it wasn't. Many times technology problems in the DDS had not been submitted via ticket, but via email, or they had just told the techs in passing. If you know anything about IT departments, that doesn't help. The ticket system helps them keep track and be aware of problems that have not been completed yet. And it turns out there were many problems with these computers. As previously mentioned, the DDS was using Discord, and that greatly slowed these computers down. Besides that, many previous files for 3D prints, large format prints, had not been deleted after being downloaded to fulfill the requests. The last issue was the entire Adobe suite was on these computers, which that's not a bad thing. These computers just could not handle the editing software of the higher end Adobe products. To handle possible problems in the future, the DDS was asked to delete requests as they were fulfilled and not to download the entire Adobe software. When it came to video editing requests, the Alienware and Mac computers in the space were more than capable of the task. So you may be wondering, why am I bringing up this story? Excellent question. It is because the department you supervise may have had previous misunderstandings or problems with another department that you may not be aware of. Those problems do not magically go away when a new supervisor comes on board either. There are a few ways to handle this. 1, be patient and listen to both sides. Don't go in demanding, why hasn't blank been done? Just listen to them and relay information to both sides. If there is a reason IT cannot get something done immediately, ask them and convey the information. Let your department know. Keep in mind that even though being patient and communicative will help, it doesn't magically solve the problem. It takes work, and things do not magically go away after one good interaction. Now, I'm about halfway through on our time, and just as a little recap, I've gone over things in the supervisory transitional period, such as early communication with your department, beginning changes, and potential problems with other departments. However, like I said, all these happened in the transitional phase. What happens when changes occur later on? What about when you want to implement your own ideas? All of that still relies on good communication, but let's cover some. Another thing the administration was concerned about was that the students were doing something DDS related while they were clocked in. If they were not processing requests or maintaining equipment, what were they supposed to be doing? More than one person to me had mentioned they had walked in and just seen the students sitting there. To address this problem, I came up with several solutions. One, we created the sign that stated who was on duty. This way it was listed, that way it listed the student workers and who would be available for help. This way, if someone was not there on the clock, if someone was there and not on the clock, whether they were in between classes, just having lunch, watching a movie, they were just living their life and having fun, people could see and knew they weren't sitting around. They're there on their own time. Also, this helps newcomers to ease into the space. They know who they're talking to, and they feel a little bit better. It's not quite so anxious when you have to walk in. Now, I say we created a sign because I brought the idea to the student workers, got their opinion, and they designed it. And yes, I asked Sunset and Micah's permission before having their name on the slide. Another solution to the sitting around problem was to have a printed list created of all the things that they could do when not working on something. Two copies of these lists were printed, laminated, and taped to desks where the student sits. This is not a difficult list, nor did it have any odd or off-the-wall tasks. It mostly contained making sure the space was clean, making sure you're trained on all the machines. There are videos to watch on the training. This would answer the question that every student worker seems to have. What do we do now? Again, this is not a difficult list, but it gave the student employees something that they could do while facing a little bit of downtime. Now, was that list followed? Did they do everything on it? I can't answer that, but the space is cleaner and they do not ask that particular question anymore. Now, the last solution that we came up with not only answered the sitting around problem, but also created a way to promote the DDS. Now, FSU PC holds a lot of tours held by the admissions department for prospective students and transfers. In the library, we have a button maker, and we have created specialized buttons promoting the library. Now, other makerspaces may 3D print things to advertise their space. So I suggested to the students that they create a small 3D print to hand out on tours to promote the DDS. The students love the idea. The administration loved the idea. Win-win. Now, for those who don't know, the mascot for Florida State University is the Seminole, and the Seminole Nation controls the right to this image. Everything from the mascot at the games to how it's portrayed, they have a say in. So the DDS decided to create their own mascot. They had several ideas and created a poll to vote on, but in the end, they came up with a dinosaur robot by the name of Robbie. Once the mascot was decided, they had several test runs, had to work out a new 3D print support system, and go through several hurdles. But now there is a giant bowl of Robbies of various colors for taking. Now, the answers to the sit around problem did not come out of my brain. They were borrowed and stolen from other institutions and libraries. Librarians are generally great borrowers of ideas. My other department, the library, already had a sign-in board and a list of activities for the student workers to do during slow times. These procedures had long been established and had been shown to work. So I borrowed these and incorporated them into the DDS. Now, before coming to FSU PC, my previous employer was Mississippi State University. They have a makerspace known as the MaxSouth Digital Media Center. Now, the Digital Media Center would print hundreds of little bulldogs, the MSU mascot, to hand out at events. So this particular idea I stole. Was MSU the first to do it? Probably not. The point is, ideas can come from anywhere and any experience. These ideas were discussed with the DDS students, and they made decisions on the Robbies and how to design them. The last thing is how to address future ideas and changes. One big idea and big change that we are looking towards in the DDS is how to make it possible to check out technology in a new way. The students, the DDS students currently have a great deal of technology available for people to borrow and use. Things from tablets, charging cords, and cameras, and of course, everything in between. However, these items are not in a library system like Alma for easy checkout. Instead, the DDS had its own way of to let students borrow items, and that's by a physical form. The problem is that systems like Alma will track loan times and impose fines, while physical systems may not. And as such, the DDS has had several items which were never returned. And they could not collect fines on them because they did not have a system that tracked that lend. There were several reasons besides tracking possible missing equipment, which led to the DDS wanting to add to the library holdings. One is that there's technology available for use in the DDS that's not really being used in-house. An example is the VR headsets. The gaming club purchased several MetaQuest 3 VR headsets, and they're currently housed in the DDS. However, they're not really used due to problems with Wi-Fi and lack of space to create the VR boundary. If students wanted to check them out, their use would probably greatly increase. The second reason is, of course, statistics. It's always great to have statistics to show if certain items are used or not. Right now, there's no real statistics. However, library systems generate them. The DDS is also looking at adding more equipment, hopefully in the near future, to help with the growing demand for more podcast equipment. This equipment would need to be checked out, so more and more students would have access to it. Now, as we all know, it is not a quick process to add technology to a library system. Many people need to be kept in the loop, decisions need to be constantly made, and through it all, I've done my best to keep the members of the DDS in the loop. At the beginning of the process, the entire idea was laid out for them. They decided whether they want to do this or not. After all, they will be the ones checking out the materials, not me. They went through the current tech and checked to see what was working and what was not, made a current list of how much everything was worth, and also listed the serial numbers. As we go through the process ever so slowly, I keep them informed and make sure to answer any concerns they have. One last thing I would like to mention is it's very easy in a presentation to make it seem like everything went smoothly and everyone lived happily ever after. This isn't the case. Many discussions with the DDS and administration had about all the decisions here. Everyone has ideas and not all of them are done. The administration strongly suggested some ideas to me at the very beginning, and I disagreed. As previously mentioned, the DDS student workers had some pushback on the Discord change. This is not the only thing we have discussed. There have been other discussions about things being moved around in the space, new policies for 3D printers, and different procedures. Why is there only one key ring? If I mentioned every single instance in this presentation, we would be here much longer than my allotted time, and ACTAL might have to buy us all dinner. I just want to throw out this reminder that yes, there'll be some ups and downs, and not everything will go smoothly. And you may have to hit the brakes on some ideas. However, the important thing is to communicate and take things slowly when you can. And most of all, be respectful to other people's ideas and opinions. Change is scary to a lot of people, and not everyone may want to jump into something new with both feet. Now, the last area I mentioned was where to get help. Now, this can kind of be a loaded suggestion. For supervisory help, I've always found that the best help is experience along with some training. Before my position, I watched several training sessions on LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning is a great resource if you're interested in being a supervisor or are one and would like some extra training. While they may not be library or makerspace specific, they are good general training sessions on how to be a good supervisor. And no, I am not sponsored by LinkedIn Learning. I also have been under supervisors much longer than I've been one. So I look back at my work history. What were some things that supervisors did that I appreciated? What were some things that they did that I didn't appreciate? And how could I keep from doing the same things? We have all had supervisors at some point, either bad or good, and we can learn from our experiences with them. Now, for ideas for a makerspace, many of them have come from outside resources. Like I said, librarians are great borrowers of ideas. So it may have come from articles, previous workspace, or even another department in your own university. There are a plethora of places in which to get new ideas. Even listservs can provide excellent ideas. At my previous institution, I held a Beat Saber tournament, which I believe was an idea from someone from the University of Miami that they had discussed during a research forum. If that person is here, thanks so much. It worked great. Of course, conferences like ACTAL are another place to get wonderful ideas. You can also voice opinions and get feedback. Indeed, I have borrowed several ideas in the past from ACTAL presentations. I remember one lively discussion at ACTAL about the problems with one-button studios, which, because of that discussion, we will not be adding them to the DDS. Also, don't forget to look inside your own institution for help. Keep your administration apprised of what you're doing and whatever issues that arise. In the past, there have been several issues with disruptive students and visitors to the DDS. Another issue was problematic prints being submitted to the 3D printer. Administration was made aware of both events and procedures were put in place. The procedures were printed and hung in place and added to the Qualtrics for the 3D prints. For problematic people, that's still in the works, but we are looking at adding cameras to the space. The administration and sometimes HR have been kept in the loop with various discussions. Most of the time, their help's not needed, but they are aware of the problem just in case. So in conclusion, we talked about many topics today regarding a different type of makerspace and supervision. The DDS is indeed a unique makerspace that is run almost exclusively by students, while still offering many of the same services that all makerspaces do. It is fair to say that every makerspace is unique and different, and honestly, their chaotic and creative spirit is why we love them. However, even though the DDS is a unique place for students, it doesn't mean that they don't need supervision. Among all the supervisory stories and methods I've mentioned today, communication is the absolute most important. With communication, it is also important to have active listening and actively listen and take in the feedback given to you. It is important to listen to your staff about their opinions, their complaints, and their ideas. Now, of course, you do not have to accept all of their ideas, and you can disagree with their opinions, but the important thing is to listen with respect to your employees and let them have their voice. Another aspect of this communication is to make sure that people are all on the same page with regards to your staff and the administration. This not only helps work run more smoothly, but also helps any surprises that may come up. Of course, we cannot account for every surprise policy change or changes, as I call it, that come from on high, but keeping your employees informed can allow your departments to weather a storm better. Likewise, with the administration side, if they know of changes in your department or employee issues, they can help as needed and even assist when things get difficult. So while good communication with active listening is not a cheat code that makes everything suddenly easier and life full of sunshine and rainbows, it can help things run smoother, whether it's a massive main library or the unique world of a makerspace. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Hi. I actually just had kind of a logistical question. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how do you and the students manage inventory? That's one of the challenges that we're trying to come up with a solution right now is like managing inventory in the space.
So one thing that we will go through is they actually will go through, and since they do the Qualtrics and everything, they know when something is breaking, when something is being bad. Like we have a laminator that's a diva and will just choose, I don't want to work today. And so they keep in touch, tell me when there's a problem and everything else. Now, if they know that I'm about to put in a list, I'll say, okay, I'm about to put in a list for to be ordered. What do we need? And I will actually give a call. What do you need? And they'll go through all of the paper. What do we need? What color filaments are we out of? That kind of thing. And I'll let them know, I'm about to put in a massive order. What do you need? And so it's when I actually ask that they're like, oh, okay, we got to see. And they'll start, you'll be amazed how quickly it's like, hey, I'm about to order this. Everybody go through, check your stations. What do you need? And that generally gets done.
And sorry, I'm not familiar with what is Qualtrics?
Qualtrics is an online form and we filled it all out. And actually, if you go to our DDS website, you can click on it and it'll actually say, like, are you an FSU employee? Are you this? Are you this? And that is how people submit their requests. Any other questions? And Lisa, thank you. I will let my student workers know that you thought Robbie was cute. Well, just a few more minutes. If there are no more questions, I'm all for going to a bathroom break. Okay.
Thank you all
Uh,
so much. It's actually the last session for the day, the concurrent
Woo!
session, so we're off to tomorrow. So hope you all have a good evening and we'll see y'all tomorrow.